No one wanted the limping girl, until the cowboy said, "Walk right into my heart." Clara had learned how to walk slowly long before she learned how to dream. Each step she took across the dusty road of the small town was careful, measured, and quiet. Her limp made a soft, uneven sound against the ground, like a reminder she could not escape. People noticed it before they noticed her face, her brown hair tied back in a simple ribbon, or the way her eyes always searched the sky as if something better might be waiting there. She lived on the edge of town in a small wooden house with her aunt, who had taken her in after her parents were gone. The house leaned slightly to one side, just like Clara did when she stood too long on her weak leg. Behind the house was a narrow piece of land where they grew vegetables and kept a few chickens. The work was hard, but Clara never complained. She believed that if she worked hard enough, the world might one day work just a little kinder toward her. Every morning Clara woke before the sun. The air was cool and quiet, and the town still slept. She liked this time because no one was there to watch her walk. No whispers, no looks of pity, no soft voices asking if she needed help. She could just be herself, moving through the world at her own pace. She fed the chickens, gathered eggs, and watered the small garden. The smell of wet soil and fresh air made her feel calm, like the earth itself understood her. Her Aunt Mary often watched from the doorway with worry in her eyes. "You do too much, Clara," she would say gently. "You should rest more." Clara would smile and shake her head. "If I rest, I think too much," she would reply. "I like to keep moving." But the truth was, thinking was hard for Clara. Her thoughts often went to the way people treated her in town. She remembered the bakery owner who spoke slowly to her, as if she could not understand. She remembered the boys who once laughed and copied her walk when they thought she could not see. She remembered the women who whispered behind their hands, saying things like, "Poor girl, she will never find a place in this world." Those words stayed with her, even when she tried to push them away. Clara had one place where she felt free. It was a small hill just outside of town, where tall grass waved in the wind and wildflowers grew in bright colors. She would walk there when she needed to feel strong. From the top she could see the whole town, the dusty roads, the small houses, and the wide open land beyond. She liked to imagine that her life was like that land, open and full of possibilities, even if she could not see them yet. One afternoon, as the sun painted the sky in soft orange and gold, Clara made her way toward the hill. Her basket was empty, her chores done for the day. She wanted to sit and watch the clouds move, like slow ships crossing a blue sea. She did not know that someone new had just arrived in town. Jake rode in on a tired brown horse, dust clinging to his boots and hat. He had been traveling for weeks, moving from place to place, looking for work and something he could not quite name. His past felt heavy behind him, like a shadow he could not shake. Every town he left, he hoped the next one would be different. The people in town noticed him right away. A cowboy always drew attention. Some looked curious, others careful. The shop owners watched him as he passed, wondering if he was trouble or just another man looking for a job. Jake tied his horse near the small general store and stepped inside. The smell of coffee and wood filled the air. He ordered a drink and asked the man behind the counter if there was any work to be found. "There's a ranch a few miles out," the man said. "Old Mr. Harris always needs strong hands. You head west until you see the broken fence. Can't miss it." Jake nodded, thanked him, and stepped back outside. As he mounted his horse, he saw a figure in the distance walking toward the hill. Something about the way she moved caught his eye. She walked slowly, carefully, but with a kind of quiet strength. She did not rush or hide. She simply moved forward. Jake watched for a moment, then turned his horse in that direction without really knowing why. Clara heard the sound of hooves behind her and felt her chest tighten. She was used to people passing her, sometimes stopping, sometimes staring. She kept her eyes forward, pretending not to notice. "Evening," a voice said, warm and calm. She turned slowly and saw a man on a horse, his hat tipped slightly back, his eyes kind but tired. He did not look at her leg. He looked at her face. "Evening," she replied, her voice soft. "Mind if I walk with you?" He asked. "My horse could use a break, and so could I." Clara hesitated. People did not usually ask to walk with her. They either hurried past or spoke quickly and moved on, but something in his tone felt honest, not careful or forced. "I'm just going to the hill," she said. "Sounds like a good place to be," he replied, swinging down from his horse and tying the reins to a nearby post. They walked side by side, the grass brushing against their legs. Jake matched his pace to hers without making it obvious. Clara noticed, and it made her feel something warm inside, something she was not used to feeling. "I'm Clara," she said after a moment. "Jake," he replied. "Just got into town today." They talked about small things at first. The weather, the town, the hill. Clara told him how she liked to watch the sky change colors in the evening. Jake told her about the places he had been: wide fields, quiet rivers, and long roads that never seemed to end. When they reached the top of the hill, they sat in the grass. The sky was a soft mix of pink and blue, and the wind carried the smell of wildflowers. "This place is nice," Jake said. "Feels peaceful." "It is," Clara replied. "It's the only place where I feel like I can breathe all the way." Jake looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the way she held herself, not small or weak, but steady. He saw someone who had learned to stand strong in a world that often tried to push her down. "People in town," he began, then stopped. He did not want to say the wrong thing. Clara smiled a small, knowing smile. "They see my walk before they see me." Jake shook his head slowly. "That's their loss." The word surprised her. She had never heard anyone say something like that so simply, so surely. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Clara felt something shift inside her. It was small, like the first light of morning, but it was there. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, not for what she could not do, but for who she was. They sat in silence, watching the stars appear one by one. When it was time to leave, Jake stood and offered his hand. Clara took it, feeling the strength in his grip, not pulling her, just steadying her. "Maybe I'll see you around," he said. "I think you will," she replied. As Clara walked back toward home, her steps felt lighter, even though her leg was the same as it had always been. She did not know what the future held, but for the first time, she felt like it might hold something good. The next morning, Clara woke up with the soft light of the sun touching her window. For a moment, she lay still, listening to the quiet sounds of the farm waking up. The chickens clucked softly outside, and the wind moved through the trees like a gentle whisper. Her body felt the same as always, her legs stiff and slow to respond, but her heart felt different. It felt lighter, like it had found a small piece of hope during the night. She thought about Jake and the way he had looked at her on the hill, not with pity or care, but with simple interest, like she was just another person in the world. The memory made her smile as she sat up and pulled on her worn boots. She moved through her morning chores as she always did, but today she hummed a quiet tune under her breath. Her Aunt Mary noticed and raised an eyebrow. "You're in a good mood," Mary said, handing Clara a cup of warm tea. Clara shrugged, trying to hide her smile.
Just a nice morning, I guess.
Mary studied her for a moment, then smiled gently. Nice mornings are rare.
It's good to enjoy them. After breakfast, Clara headed into town to sell a small basket of eggs and vegetables. The road felt long, and the sun was already warm on her face. As she walked, she noticed people moving around, opening shops and talking in small groups. Some nodded at her, some looked away. It was the same as always. At the edge of town, near the old barn, she saw Jake. He was working with a group of men, lifting heavy boards and stacking them near a fence. His shirt was rolled up at the sleeves, and sweat darkened the fabric near his collar. He looked focused, serious, like he was putting all his energy into the simple task. Clara slowed without meaning to. Jake noticed her, and his face lit up. He stepped away from the group and walked toward her. "Morning, Clara," he said. "Didn't expect to see you so soon." "I come to town most days," she replied. "I help my aunt sell things." "That's good," he said. "I just started work at the Harris Ranch. Figured I should earn my keep if I'm going to stay around." The word "stay" caught her attention. She did not know why, but it made her feel warm again. They talked for a few minutes, standing near the road. The other workers glanced over now and then, curious, but not unkind. Clara felt a little out of place, but Jake made it easy to forget about that.
I have to go, she said finally, lifting her basket. But maybe I'll see you later.
"I hope so," Jake replied. As Clara walked away, she felt eyes on her back. She did not turn around, but she knew Jake was watching her go, just like the night before. The day moved on, full of small moments. Clara sold her eggs and vegetables, bought a little flour and sugar, and listened to the shop owners talk about the weather and the ranch. She heard that the Harris Ranch was struggling, that the fences were broken in many places and the cattle kept wandering off. They needed strong hands, and Jake seemed to be one of them. When she returned home, she found her aunt sitting on the porch, looking tired. "Are you feeling all right?" Clara asked, setting down her basket. Mary sighed, "Just a bit worn out. The days feel longer lately." Clara frowned. Her aunt had always been strong, but she could see the lines of worry on her face. She helped Mary inside and made her rest while she took care of the afternoon chores. As she worked, Clara thought about how much depended on her. The farm, the animals, her aunt. Sometimes the weight of it all felt heavy, like a stone in her chest, but she kept going, step by careful step. Later that evening, as the sky began to change colors again, Clara saw a familiar figure walking up the road toward her house. Jake stopped at the gate, not wanting to step in without being invited. "Hope I'm not bothering you," he said. "I just wanted to see if you'd like to walk up to the hill again." Clara felt her heart jump. She glanced at the house, where her aunt rested inside. "I can go for a little while," she said. They walked together, the same path as before, but it felt different now, like it belonged to them. "I heard your aunt isn't feeling well," Jake said gently. "If you ever need help around the place, I don't mind lending a hand." "That's kind of you," Clara replied. "We manage, but it's nice to know someone cares." They reached the hill as the sun dipped low. The sky was bright with colors, and the wind was stronger tonight, moving the tall grass in waves. Jake sat down and looked out over the land. "You know," he said, "I've been running most of my life. From jobs, from towns, from myself. This place feels different." Clara listened, her hands folded in her lap. "Different how?" "Like I could stay," he said. "Like I could build something instead of just passing through." The words stayed with her. She wanted to ask what he meant, but she was afraid of the answer. As they talked, a group of people from town walked past on the lower path. Clara recognized some of them. She heard her name whispered, soft but clear enough. "That's the girl who walks funny," one voice said. "And that's the new cowboy," another replied. "Wonder what he sees in her." Clara's shoulders tightened. She looked down at the grass, wishing she could disappear. Jake heard them too. He stood up slowly and turned toward the voices, but they were already gone. He sat back down beside Clara. "Don't listen to that," he said. "They don't know you." "It's hard not to," she replied quietly. "It's been like that my whole life." Jake was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I know what it's like to be judged for something you can't change. My past follows me wherever I go."
But I'm trying to be more than what people think I am.
Clara looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the tiredness in his eyes, the weight he carried inside. "Maybe we can both try to be more," she said. He smiled at that, a real smile, wide and warm. As the stars came out, they talked about simple dreams. Clara spoke about wanting to make the farm better, to grow more food, to maybe one day sell at the market in a bigger town. Jake talked about wanting a place to call home, a job that meant something, and people who saw him for who he was now, not who he used to be. When it was time to go, they stood at the edge of the hill. "Thank you for tonight," Jake said. "It means more than you know." Clara nodded. "It means something to me, too." They walked back in silence, comfortable and calm. That night, as Clara lay in bed, she stared at the ceiling and thought about the future. It still felt uncertain, full of hard work and long days. But now, there was also the thought of someone walking beside her, matching her pace, not trying to change her, just willing to be there. The days that followed felt busier than ever. The sky stayed clear and the sun rose bright each morning, bringing with it the promise of work and the quiet hope of something new. Clara moved through her routine with steady steps, her mind often drifting back to the hill, to the sound of Jake's voice, and to the way he listened as if every word she said mattered. At the Harris Ranch, Jake worked from morning until late afternoon. The fences were old and broken in many places, and the cattle wandered too far when they could. He lifted heavy posts, dug holes in the hard ground, and tied wire until his hands were sore. But he did not complain. The work felt good. It made him feel useful, like he was building something that might last longer than the dust of the road behind him. Sometimes during his breaks, he would look toward the town, wondering if Clara was walking the road at that same moment, carrying her basket or heading up the hill. The thought of her made the long hours feel shorter. One afternoon, dark clouds gathered in the distance. The air felt thick, and the wind changed, blowing in fast and sharp. The ranch owner, Mr. Harris, stood on the porch, watching the sky with a worried look. "We're going to get a storm," he said, "and the fence on the west side won't hold. If the cattle get out, we'll be in trouble." Jake stepped forward. "I'll go check it now." 2 other workers joined him, and they hurried across the fields as the first drops of rain fell. The ground grew slick under their boots, and the wind pushed against them. They found the fence leaning low, the wire loose and weak. They worked fast, tying and pulling, hammering posts into the wet ground. Rain soaked their clothes and thunder rolled across the sky. Jake's arms burned with effort, but he kept going. Back in town, Clara stood at the window of her house, watching the storm move in. The rain hit the roof hard, and the wind rattled the shutters. Her aunt sat in a chair near the fire, wrapped in a blanket. "This weather is not good for the ranch," Mary said softly. Clara nodded. She thought of Jake out there in the rain, working in the fields. The thought made her chest feel tight with worry. As the storm grew stronger, a loud crack of thunder made Mary jump. She pressed a hand to her chest and winced. "Aunt Mary?" Clara rushed to her side. "I'm all right," Mary said. But her face was pale. Clara helped her lie down on the bed and brought her water. She stayed by her side, listening to her breathing, watching the rise and fall of her chest. The storm outside felt far away compared to the worry inside the small room. After a while, Mary fell asleep, her breathing slow and steady. Clara sat back in her chair, exhausted. She looked out the window again. The rain was easing, and the clouds were starting to move away. When the storm finally passed, the world outside felt clean and fresh. The ground was dark and wet, and the air smelled like rain and earth. Jake returned to town late that evening, tired and soaked. The fence held and the cattle stayed safe, but his body ached from the long hours of work. He stopped at the general store to buy some food, then headed back to the small room he was renting. On his way, he passed Clara's house. The light was still on inside. He hesitated, then walked up to the gate. Clara heard the sound and looked up. When she saw Jake standing there, her heart lifted. "You're out in the rain all day and still come to visit?" she said, opening the gate. Jake smiled. "I wanted to make sure you were all right." They stood under the porch roof, the night cool and quiet around them. "My aunt wasn't feeling well today," Clara said.
I stayed with her. How is she now? Jake asked. She's resting.
"I think she'll be okay." Jake nodded. "If you need anything, just let me know." They walked a little way down the road, the wet ground shining under the moonlight.
"I fixed the fence today," Jake said.
"It was close, but we got it done." "That's good," Clara replied. "You work so hard." He shrugged. "It feels good to work for something that matters." She looked at him, understanding more than he knew. The next few days brought new challenges. Mary's strength did not return as quickly as Clara hoped. She spent more time in bed, and the farm work fell almost completely on Clara's shoulders. Clara tried to keep up, but the long days took their toll. Her leg ached more than usual, and her hands were sore from carrying and lifting. Still, she did not stop. She woke early and worked until the sky grew dark. One morning, Jake showed up at the gate without saying a word. He picked up a bucket and started helping with the chores.
"You don't have to do this," Clara said, surprised. "I want to," he replied simply.
They worked side by side, feeding the animals, fixing a loose board on the fence, and gathering vegetables from the garden. Jake was careful not to move too fast, not to make Clara feel like she had to keep up. He followed her lead, letting her set the pace. As they worked, they talked about small things, the shape of the clouds, the way the chickens always seemed to get into trouble, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery in town. The simple talk made the work feel lighter. People in town began to notice. They saw Jake helping on Clara's farm, walking with her on the road, sitting with her on the hill. Some shook their heads. Some whispered. Some looked thoughtful. One afternoon, as Clara and Jake walked through the town square, a group of women stood near the well. Clara heard her name again, soft but clear.
"He could do better," one voice said. "Why would he tie himself to someone like her?" Clara's face grew warm.
She kept walking, her eyes on the ground. Jake stopped. He turned toward the women, his voice calm but firm. "You don't know her," he said, "and you don't get to decide what's better for me." The women fell silent, surprised. Jake turned back to Clara. "Let's go," he said gently. They walked on, the sound of their steps steady on the ground. Clara did not speak until they reached the hill. "I don't want to be a burden," she said quietly. I don't want people to think you're with me because you feel sorry for me." Jake looked at her, his eyes serious. "I'm not here because I feel sorry for you. I'm here because I choose to be." The words stayed with her, strong and clear. That evening, as they sat watching the sky, Clara felt something deep inside her shift. She had spent so much of her life trying to prove she was enough. Now, someone was telling her she already was, but life did not slow down for feelings. The ranch faced another problem. A group of cattle went missing, and Mr. Harris was worried. Jake and the other workers searched the fields and the hills, calling out and riding for hours. Clara heard about it in town and felt a familiar knot of worry. She went up to the hill, hoping to see Jake's figure in the distance. The sun began to set, and the air grew cool. Just as she was about to turn back, she saw him walking up the path, tired but safe. "They found the cattle," he said, smiling when he saw her. "They had wandered into a low valley." "I'm glad you're okay," she said, relief in her voice. They stood there, the sky glowing behind them. "I don't know how long I'll be here," Jake said suddenly. "The ranch needs help, but I don't know what will happen after that." Clara felt a quiet fear rise inside her. She had known this moment would come. "I understand," she said. "You've always been moving." Jake looked at her. "I don't want to keep moving." The words were simple, but they carried weight. They stood in silence, the wind moving through the grass, the stars beginning to appear. Clara did not know what the future would bring. She only knew that the present moment felt full, like something important was growing between them, something built not on pity or need, but on choice and care. As they walked back down the hill together, their steps were not perfectly matched. Clara's were slow and careful. Jake's were steady and strong. But they moved forward side by side, and for now, that was enough. The air felt different the next morning. It was cooler, quieter, like the world was holding its breath. Clara noticed it as soon as she stepped outside. The sky was pale and wide, and the birds were slow to sing. She stood on the porch for a moment, leaning on the wooden rail, and listened to the soft sounds of the farm waking up. Inside the house, her Aunt Mary coughed lightly. The sound made Clara turn right away. She went back in and found Mary sitting up in bed, her face tired but calm. "Did I wake you?" Mary asked. "No," Clara said. "I was already up." Mary studied her, the way only someone who truly knows you can. "You've been carrying a lot lately," she said. "I can see it in your eyes." Clara sat on the edge of the bed. "I'm just trying to keep things going." Mary reached out and took her hand. "You don't have to do everything alone, you know." Clara thought about Jake, about how he showed up without being asked, about how he worked beside her without making her feel small. "I know," she said softly. Later that day, Clara went into town to pick up some medicine for her aunt. The road felt longer than usual, and her leg ached with every step. She pushed through the pain, focusing on the sound of the wind and the smell of the dry grass. In the town square, people were gathered in small groups, talking more loudly than usual. Clara caught bits of words as she passed. Big ranch up north. Good pay. Strong workers needed. Her heart skipped a beat. At the general store, the man behind the counter was talking to Jake. Jake's back was to her, but she knew it was him by the way he stood, steady and relaxed. 2 weeks of hard work, maybe more, the man was saying. But the pay is better than anything around here. Jake nodded slowly. "I'll think about it." Clara stood still, her basket hanging from her arm. She did not move until Jake turned and saw her. "Clara," he said, surprised and happy. "Didn't see you there?" She forced a small smile.
I just came for some things.
They walked outside together. What was that about? Clara asked, even though she already knew. There's a ranch a few days' ride from here, Jake said. They need workers. The pay is good. Better than what I'm getting now. Clara nodded, her chest tight. That sounds like a good chance. It might be, he said. I haven't decided. They walked in silence for a few steps. You've always said you don't like to stay in one place, Clara said finally. Jake looked at the ground. I used to say that. I'm not so sure anymore. They stopped near the edge of the road. The town moved around them, people passing, carts rolling, voices rising and falling. If you go, Clara said, her voice steady, even though her heart was not. I'll understand. Will you? She nodded. You deserve a good life. A better life. He wanted to say something more, but the words did not come. That afternoon, Jake worked at the Harris Ranch, but his mind was not on the fences or the cattle. It was on Clara's face, on the way she had tried to be strong for him. Mr. Harris noticed. You've got something else on your mind, he said, leaning on the fence. Jake sighed. I might have a chance to leave, for better pay.
Mr. Harris nodded slowly.
That's how it goes. Folks don't stay here forever. Jake thought of Clara, of the hill, of the small farm at the edge of town. Some things make you want to stay, he said. Mr. Harris smiled a little. Then you've got a harder choice than most. Back at the farm, Clara worked through the afternoon, her movements slower than usual. Her leg hurt, but the deeper ache was in her chest. She kept seeing Jake walking away, his figure getting smaller on the road. As the sun began to set, she went up to the hill alone. The grass was cool under her hands as she sat down. The sky burned with color, bright and soft at the same time. She had always come here to feel strong. Tonight she came to feel brave. She thought about her life before Jake arrived, the quiet days, the lonely walks, the feeling of being unseen. He had changed that without even trying. Footsteps sounded behind her. She turned and saw Jake walking up the path, his face serious. She nodded. I needed some air. They sat down, a little space between them. I've been thinking about that job, Jake said. About leaving. Clara looked at the sky. And about you, he added. Her heart beat faster. I don't want to go because I'm afraid to stay, he said. And I don't want to stay because I'm afraid to go.
I want to choose, not run.
Clara turned to him. You've already chosen, haven't you? He did not answer right away. I care about you, he said, finally. More than I expected, more than I planned. The words were simple, but they hit her like a wave. I care about you too, she said quietly. But I don't want to be the reason you miss out on something better. Jake shook his head. You are not something that holds me back. You are something that makes me want to move forward. They sat in silence, the wind moving the grass around them. In town, a few people watched from a distance. They saw Jake and Clara together on the hill, the new cowboy and the girl who walked slowly. Some shook their heads, some wondered. The next day, the town seemed to buzz with talk about Jake's possible leaving. The news traveled fast. Clara heard it at the well. He's going to that big ranch, someone said. Smart move. Clara kept her face calm, but her hand shook as she carried her bucket back home. That evening, Mary called Clara to sit with her.
I've heard things, Mary said gently, about Jake.
Clara nodded. He might leave. Mary looked at her closely. And what do you want? Clara opened her mouth and closed it. She had spent so much of her life thinking about what others wanted for her. She had almost forgotten how to think about what she wanted. I want him to be happy, she said.
Mary smiled.
Sometimes letting someone be happy means letting them choose to stay. Clara thought about that all night. The following day, Jake came to the farm early. He helped with the chores, but both of them were quiet. The air between them felt heavy, full of things not yet said. When the work was done, Jake stood at the gate. I need to give them an answer tomorrow, he said. Clara nodded, her throat tight. I know. They walked to the hill one last time before the sun set. The sky was wide and clear. The world felt big and small all at once. I don't know what I'll do, Jake said. Part of me still wants to take the road. Clara took a deep breath. Then take it. He looked at her, surprised. If you go, she continued, I'll be okay. I've been okay before. I'll keep going. I always do. Jake saw the truth in her words. He also saw the quiet hope she tried to hide. They stood there, close but not touching, the space between them full of choice and fear. As the stars came out, Jake finally spoke. Tomorrow, he said, I'll decide. Clara nodded. They walked back down the hill slowly, their steps not matching, their hearts moving faster than their feet. Neither of them knew what the morning would bring. They only knew that whatever happened, this moment, this choice, would change both of their lives forever. Morning came quietly, like it did not want to disturb the heavy thoughts that filled the small town. The sky was soft and pale, and a light breeze moved through the trees near Clara's house. She stood on the porch for a long time, holding a cup of warm tea in both hands, watching the road that led toward town. Today was the day. Her Aunt Mary sat behind her, wrapped in a blanket, watching Clara instead of the sky. You don't have to be strong every moment, Mary said gently. Clara turned and smiled, a small, tired smile. I just don't know how to be anything else. Mary reached out and squeezed her hand. Whatever happens today, remember who you are. You are not the girl people see when they only look at how you walk. You are the girl who keeps going. Those words stayed with Clara as she made her way into town. Each step felt heavier than usual, not because of her leg, but because of the weight in her chest. The road seemed longer, the sun slower to rise. At the general store, a small group of men stood talking near the door. Jake was among them. Clara stopped for a moment, just watching him. He looked the same as always, tall and steady, his hat pulled low, his hands resting at his sides, but something about him felt different, like he was standing at the edge of a road he had not yet chosen. Jake saw her and stepped away from the group. Clara, he said. They walked a little distance away, where the noise of town faded into the background. I'm going to the other ranch, Jake said. They're waiting for my answer. Clara nodded. Her throat felt tight, but she kept her voice calm. I know. They stood in silence. A cart rolled past. Someone laughed in the distance. Life went on, even as their small world felt like it was standing still. I didn't sleep much, Jake said. I kept thinking about what you said last night, about how you'd be okay if I left. Clara looked down at the ground. It's true. I will be. Jake studied her face, the way she held herself, the quiet strength that never seemed to leave her. You shouldn't have to be okay alone, he said. She looked up at him then. I'm not asking you to stay. I'm asking you to choose what's right for you. Jake took a slow breath. That's the problem. I don't know which one that is." They walked together toward the edge of town, where the roads split. One path led toward the distant ranch, the other led back toward the hill, the farm, and the life Jake had started to build here. They stopped at the place where the roads met. "This is where I turn," Jake said quietly. Clara nodded. "I'll walk back this way." They stood there, neither moving. Jake reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, smooth stone. "I found this near the hill," he said. "It reminded me of you. Worn down, maybe, but still strong." Clara smiled softly and took the stone. "Thank you." Jake put his hat back on his head and turned toward the road. "Jake," Clara said before he could take a step. He turned back. "I don't regret meeting you," she said. "No matter what happens today." He felt something in his chest shift. "I don't either," he replied. Jake started down the road. Clara watched him go, her eyes following his figure as it grew smaller and smaller. When he finally disappeared from sight, she let out a slow breath she did not realize she had been holding. She turned and began the walk back home. The sun was higher now, and the road was warm under her feet. Each step felt like a reminder of everything she had been through, everything she had learned to carry. At the farm, Mary was waiting on the porch.
"He went, didn't he?" Mary asked softly.
Clara nodded. Mary opened her arms, and Clara stepped into them. They stood there for a long moment, holding each other, the quiet farm around them.
"I'll be okay," Clara said, even as her eyes filled. "I know," Mary replied, "but it's all right to feel what you feel." The day moved on.
Clara fed the animals, worked in the garden, fixed a loose board on the fence. The world did not stop because her heart felt heavy. The sun still moved across the sky. The wind still whispered through the trees, but everything felt a little quieter. That evening, Clara went up to the hill alone. The grass moved in the soft light of the setting sun, and the sky was painted with gentle colors. She sat down and held the small stone in her hand, rubbing her thumb over its smooth surface. She thought about Jake on the road, about where he might be now. She hoped he would find what he was looking for. As the first stars appeared, she heard footsteps behind her. Her heart jumped, even though she told herself not to hope. She turned. Jake stood there, his hat in his hand, his face tired but bright. "You're not very good at leaving," Clara said, her voice shaking. Jake smiled. "Turns out I'm even worse at staying away." She stood slowly, not trusting her leg or her heart. "What happened?" she asked.
"I walked down that road," Jake said. "Every step felt wrong."
Like I was walking away from something I'd already chosen, even if I didn't want to admit it. He took a step closer. I realized I've been running most of my life. From places, from people, from myself. And for the first time, staying feels like the brave thing to do. "But the job," she said. "But the job," she said. "The pay, the chance." Jake shook his head. "A chance to make more money isn't the same as a chance to build a life. I want a life." He looked at her, really looked at her. "And I want to build it here, with you, if you'll let me." Clara's hands trembled. "I don't want to hold you back." Jake stepped closer, close enough that she could see her own reflection in his eyes. "You don't hold me back," he said. "You walk right into my heart every day, just by being who you are." Clara laughed through her tears. "You really say things like that?" Jake smiled. "Only when I mean them." They stood there, the hill quiet around them, the stars shining above. Jake held out his hand, not to pull her, not to lead her, but to walk beside her. Clara took it. They did not move right away. They just stood there, hand in hand, feeling the simple truth of the moment. When they finally started down the hill together, their steps were still not the same. Clara's were slow and careful. Jake's were steady and strong. But this time, they did not try to match each other. They just walked, side by side. Back at the farm, Mary saw them coming down the road and smiled. The days that followed were not perfect. The farm still needed work. The ranch still had problems. The town did not change overnight, but something had changed in Clara. She no longer walked with her eyes on the ground. And something had changed in Jake. He no longer looked at the road like it was the only place he belonged. Together, they faced the future, not as someone saving someone else, not as someone being saved, but as two people choosing, every day, to walk forward not alone, but together.